to the Wake Podcast. I'm your host, Alejandra Moreno, and I'm here again with my great friend, Pedro Salim. Thank you for coming back and being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, I want to talk about something that's a little bit of a hot topic, and it's Alligator Alcatraz. I don't have a lot of experience with detention centers, and we'll get to Alligator Alcatraz. I recently visited a detention center, and I want to talk about that first. Some clients that are being deported, but they have minor children. So we went to the detention center to sign some powers, power of attorney for a minor, because if they are deported and their kids stay here, they need to give the authority to somebody else to literally do everything.
Absolutely.
I mean, take them to school, pick them up from school, check the mail, take them to doctor's appointments. I mean, we have a very complex power of attorney for minors to make sure all your bases are covered. But if they did not have that power of attorney, I'm going to let you talk about what that looks like.
Yeah, right now we are recommending to all our clients or anybody who's undocumented in the United States that have children, minors, to contact someone like your office to try to get an attorney to do a power of attorney, do a trust, do a living will. It's so important because what happens is that ICE is picking up people every day, whether you're driving, whether you're at work. And if you find yourself being detained and possibly being deported very soon after that, you are leaving everything behind. You're leaving your house, you're leaving your kids. So the question is, who's going to pick up your kids from school? Who's going to take them to the doctor, like you said? If you want your kid to travel back to your country to reunite with you, who's going to take them to the airport? You need someone that's going to have legal documentation and permission to do so. Who's going to sell your house? Who's going to sell your car to be able to get those assets to take back to your home country?
Right.
Those are all things that an attorney like yourself will prepare for these clients in anticipation of something happening like that.
Yeah, because if not, everything is just kind of up in the air.
Yeah.
And you can't really do those things from abroad.
Absolutely.
Or it becomes a lot more difficult. And unless you're going to take your kids with you, you want them to stay here, you can't just drop them off and go. You need some kind of legal documentation.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yes, we've been seeing that a lot more, and we don't practice immigration. People trying to do some kind of estate plan, not only if they pass away, but also if they are physically unable to manage their assets, sell their assets, whatever it is. So I think that's kind of like the tie between both of our worlds, right? But I do want to talk about Alligator Alcatraz. I haven't been to that detention center, but all I see in the news is madness and craziness. So I wanted to know what you've seen, what you think, what you've heard, what's not true, what's true.
I think we need to look at it for in a perspective. Obviously, what we see in the media, it's terrible, right? They built a detention center overnight in the middle of the swamp, right? And they called it Alligator Alcatraz. They could have called it anything else. They could have called it what it is, which is a Dade Collier, detention center.
Right.
But obviously, politically, they want to make a point.
Right.
They want to make a point like, hey, if you escape from here, you're gonna get eaten by alligators. Kind of like the one in California.
Yes.
California.
I did a swim. I did the shark swim there.
Did you?
Yeah, that they drop you off in Alcatraz and you have to swim back to the San Francisco Bay.
So,
and I'm sure nobody escaped from there.
I mean, it's funny because most of our clients are not scared of alligators. Like no undocumented person is gonna be out there. They'll probably kill them between there.
They're more scared of ice.
Yeah, they're more scared of ice. Exactly. So the detention center was built overnight. It houses 3,000 people, which is huge. Up until recently, without that detention center, there was a huge need for an additional detention center because there was no space to put anybody. Obviously, in a perfect world, these people wouldn't be being detained. But in this administration, their goal is to try to detain and deport as many people as possible. So in doing so, what was happening is that the detention center in Miami, which is Chrome, and we have one in Broward called Broward Transitional Center, they were at capacity. So they were sending our clients to different states, and that was making it very difficult for us to represent people in other states, represent them, not being able to talk to them sometimes or meet with them. So that made some difficulties. Ron DeSantis had basically saw this opportunity of an open airport where it wasn't being used. It was designed for an airport, never became an airport. So the idea was, let's build this overnight, 3,000 beds, with the capability of growing it to 5,000 beds.
Oh wow! So they're not even done yet.
So they did the 3,000. They started already putting people in there. I've spoken to clients that I have there. Unlike what you see in the media, everyone who I've spoken to says it's not bad. I mean, obviously,
It's a detention
it's a
center.
detention center.
Yeah,
you're not going to
yeah.
be sitting in the,
It's
you're
not
not,
a
you're not,
country
you're
club.
not in the Four Seasons.
Yeah, yeah.
But they do get 3 meals a day. They do have air conditioning, unlike what people see in the media.
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
oh my God, it's hot. You're in the swamp. There's air conditioning. There's 3 meals a day. There's facilities for them to use. They have access to telephone to be able to make calls to their client, to their attorney, or their family members. The only downfall, which is right now there's a big lawsuit, is that family and attorneys are not allowed to go in person. So if I want to meet with my client in person to prepare him for a trial or a hearing, I can't do that physically in person.
And family can't visit.
And family cannot visit. So that's one of the big lawsuits right now, that attorneys are filing a lawsuit saying that they're being violated the due process rights for being able to go in there and meet with their attorney, their clients. So that's one thing that's happening right now. In addition to that, the governor started expanding the 3,000 beds to 5,000 beds. A new judge just did an injunction stopping it for 14 days that where they cannot construct more beds. However, based on the new big beautiful bill, there's more money now for new detention centers around the whole United States. And now based on that, the Governor DeSantis just announced yesterday that they're building a new detention center in Baker County, which is going to house another 1,500 beds, 2,000 beds in Baker County. So they're going to build what's similar to Alligator Alcatraz in Baker County.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, it's very political, right?
Yes.
You have to, think, who's president and what all that media comes with, he's being painted as, like a dictator, wants to deport everybody. And looking at the detention center, it looks bad, right? It's in the middle of the Everglades. But then you also got to think, it wasn't that long ago Obama was president, right? And we were finding ourselves in a crisis where kids were coming through the border.
Yeah.
And Obama built a tent in Homestead that housed minors,
And back then, the media was calling it kids in cages. I mean,
Correct.
The media is always going to say something sensational.
No matter who's president, there's always going to be a play in the media, I think that obviously this is getting a lot more attention because the president is seeking that attention.
Right.
But, what happened, 10, 15 years ago was also pretty bad. And if anything, worse to me because you're putting minors in tents, temporary housing.
Right.
I understand there was a need at that time because what were you going to do with all these hundreds of thousands of kids that were coming through the border illegally by themselves, 10, 9, 12 years old? So yeah, I mean, I think the media plays a big part on what you're seeing.
Of course.
And how they twist and turn these things. It is a detention center. It is there to house people. It's not going to be anything long term. They're not going to be there for, a year or more. But yeah, it is what it is. And we are representing people there every day.
Do you think that with the construction of Alligator Alcatraz, more people are being detained, or the overflow from the other detention centers are coming there? Or, I know a lot of these laws have been in place for many years. They just hadn't been enforced. So what do you think about that? I mean,
I think both. We have an overflow of our detention centers that are pouring into there. I think we have the capability to possibly bring other immigrants from other states to Alligator Alcatraz, and then now having the capability of having an extra 1,000 bed or so, that is going to give ICE the green light to go out and detain more people.
Do you think the people that are being detained, and not necessarily Alligator Alcatraz, but in any of these detention centers, since you said it's temporary, do you see more people being deported, or do you see, because I was reading that even though there are a lot of mass deportations, that was part of, the president's campaign, there are also a lot of cases being fast-tracked, which in the past they were kind of,
Correct. Yeah. So I initially the president's campaign was we're gonna detain and deport all criminals, people who've committed crimes in this country. And for the first couple months, it was that, right? They went after all the gang members. They went after all the people from El Salvador, the Tren de Aragua, and that was the initial part of the administration. But now we're pretty much detaining everybody. Not just for committing crimes, but for just being a passenger in a vehicle. Just walking down the street or doing something that, working in a factory. They are basically targeting everyone and everyone who's undocumented. Their eyes, even though you didn't commit a crime in the United States, by the fact that you went to the United States, you're considered a criminal.
Correct.
So they're obviously focusing on criminals, but they're also focusing on other people too. And what we're seeing is also that if ICE goes detain somebody at a job site that has a deportation order or a serious criminal offense, and they go for John Doe, while they're there, they go, okay, let's check everyone's IDs, let's check
Oh, yeah.
everyone's legal status here,
Yeah.
and then they'll round
Ra-
up another 10 people.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening too.
Do you see a lot of people that maybe don't have a criminal record? They've been picked up, but they've been here for such a long time and they just never went through the immigration process. And
Yeah.
this is kind of like the trigger, and they're like, okay, I have to do this now.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's people who have been detained, who have no criminal history in the United States, who've been here for 10 years, have U.S. citizen children, pay taxes, work, and they find themselves detained. Those are the good cases for me, because those I'm able to, for the most part, try to get them a bond to get them out. I'm able to tell the judge, look, they qualify for XYZ relief because they've been here for X amount of years. They have U.S. citizen children, or they have U.S. citizen spouses. This is the relief they have available. Those are the good cases, and those we've been able to hopefully get out on bond and help them get a work permit, driver's license, and ultimately their residency.
Okay. And the bad cases?
Bad cases are those, obviously, the worst cases are the ones that people who have prior deportation orders.
Oh.
So if you have a prior deportation order, you were deported and re-enter, there's not much an attorney can do at that point, because ICE is going to basically reinstate your prior order and you'll be on the next flight out to your country. Also, the bad cases are people who've committed serious crimes. We just had a case recently where the client committed a crime for cocaine. There's no waiver for that. So there's certain crimes, depending on what the crime is, that there's no waiver, and that it limits the amount of relief you have available.
Yeah.
So if you have a cocaine conviction, now you can't apply for asylum, because you're precluded from applying for asylum. So basically, you're down to applying for Convention Against Torture, which is a form of asylum, but it limits the scope of what you can get approved.
Right. What do you think you see more of?
I'm seeing more nowadays. In the beginning of the administration, we're seeing a lot more serious crimes. Now we're seeing people with little to no crimes being detained.
And then you're able to at least give them the proper...
Depending on who the judge is, and depending on who the the government attorney is, that plays a big part on whether or not...
you're practicing all over the United
Correct.
States.
So, we may have a case in Miami that we can get a bond, but that same case in Texas, we don't get a bond.
Yeah. Oh, it's complicated. Well, thank you. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your experience, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And thank you all for listening from ASM Law Group, preserving what matters most for those who matter most.